Honored to be on your show, Jack. I have worked in the Republican Party in Texas since 1972. I worked in Republican Party politics when you couldn't elect a dog catcher for anything. We took the party and took the state over in 1978 with the election of Bill Clements, Republican governor, first Republican governor in 105 years. We won that election by 1.5 votes per precinct. From there, I had managed the ballot security program in that campaign. I also did it for the Reagan-Bush campaign. Ultimately went to Washington, served in the Reagan administration, went on to become executive director of an organization that had as its membership election clerks and election officials across the U.S. So I had an opportunity to work with vendors to understand how voting equipment works, or how it doesn't work, shall we say.
That's a pretty good thing, Carol, that we're talking about maybe the election for governor in 2010, and the first component that you guys have put together is how we're going to watch out for this electronic voting. And we're going to have an announcement for Vote Rescue a little bit later in the show, but please continue.
That's exactly right, Jack. And I think many people for a long time have been aware that we've had a problem, but thanks to you and folks at Vote Rescue for bringing this to more public attention than it's had in the past. But let me get to the reason I'm here tonight, and that's to introduce Penny Langford-Freeman. When I also was a very big Ron Paul supporter, have been since about 1982, worked really hard in his presidential race. Many of us began to wonder, where do we go from here after we thought that Ron probably wouldn't get the presidency. We talked about electing state legislators. People have talked about organizations. Organizations have formed. People have formed PACs to try to elect some of these people. Then I remembered the experience of 1978 when we went for the gold here in Texas, and that was the gubernatorial campaign. And so I suggested to some people that we might want to look at that. The more we talked about it, the more we thought, that's the only way to do this. Let's go for the gold. Let's make Texas a state that other people can look at and say, we want to emulate this state. Okay, the next step is, who do we run for governor? We discussed that for quite some time as well. And then we all came up with Penny Langford-Freeman. We approached Penny. Penny was a reluctant candidate, but she has certainly looked at the demographics, looked at various things at this point, and has decided that she at least is going to give it serious attention. Penny worked in Ron Paul's office for 10 years or more. I've known her for probably...
I've heard of that guy, Ron Paul. He has a
Yes.
giant revolution behind him and will be taking over at the Republican National Coronation here, back to back. In fact, today, well, no, because today I saw the wonderful Chris Matthews. I don't know if you're familiar with Chris Matthews from Hardball. We went and filmed an interview with him at Brown University, where he puts his kids into the Ivy League school in Rhode Island. And just to kind of break in here and give people a little background, I was shocked when he said, and I'm quoting him verbatim, we got this on camera, he said, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm part of the establishment, and I think the people at Waco got what they deserved. I mean, he literally had the gumption to say that. Now, today, he was talking about the Puma people. These are the people that are backing Hillary Clinton, and they're rabidly backing Hillary Clinton. They hate Barack Obama, not as much as I do, but I think it's a close race there. And they've gone and they've spent all this time to put up blogs, to put out videos, to get a lot of the information out, disclosure that President Obama doesn't want us to have. You see, I'm already calling him President Obama because I think it's about to that point. But what I was going to say was Chris Matthews was calling them all nuts. They're wacky. They're nuts. And then they have Chuck Todd come on, the young gentleman with the goatee on MSNBC. That is a General Electric network, as many of us know. And he said, yeah, like those Ron Paul, they're kind of like the Ron Paul people. They're going to be up at the Republican National Convention, or Coronation, as I call it, which I'm not sure that would be a good comparison. But before Ron Paul and his many, many loyal supporters come up to Minnesota, they're already labeling them as wacky, and they haven't even done anything yet. But again, I interrupt you, Carol. I've heard of Ron Paul.
That's okay, yes, and we love him. And it's it's unfortunate that what's happened in the Republican Party has happened, but we're going to take the momentum now. We're going to move ahead with it. How did we come up with Penny Langford-Freeman? We've had Harvard, we've had Yale, we've been there, we've done that. We've had pretty hair. We've had, Mont Ferguson. So what were we looking for when we came up with a candidate? We were looking for a people's candidate, somebody who was one of us. We were looking for someone with education on life. And
somebody who's not a puppet of the elite.
Not a puppet of the elite. This woman that is on your show tonight is incredible. She was a rice farmer early in her life. She carried 4 babies on her hips to farm rice, try to save the family farm. When the U.S. Department of Agriculture was coming in and really trying to destroy things, she unfortunately went through a divorce. She was the mother of single mom of 4 kids. She did everything to keep her family together. She was farming, she was homeschooling, she was working with a janitorial service, anything to keep herself going, but she never went on welfare. She never asked for food stamps. She was self-sufficient. She was actually recruited by Ron Paul's staff to work for them because of her extensive knowledge of the agricultural issues. From there, she went on to become Ron's spokesman, not only in the state of Texas, but all over the United States. She was his policy director. Penny knows as much about the Constitution as Ron does, in my opinion. And so we were looking for someone honest, conscientious, someone who would not disappoint us. We've been disappointed too much. We wanted someone who would run on the independent ticket, not be tied to a party, and not be beholden to a party once she was elected. So when we looked at all of those things, the person that we came up with was Penny. And so we've come 4 or 5 months down the road now. We have an incredible consultant that is going to be working with us, very high profile person that people will know when we're ready to announce that. We're going to be doing credible polls. We already have financing to some extent for the exploratory committee. So we are moving along. We're meeting with groups. We certainly want our Ron Paul base to turn out. We are adamant about paper ballots because no matter what we do for Penny, no matter what we do for another candidate, if what you do at the ballot box does not count, then everything that everybody has done will be for naught. So we're on a 2-pronged track here. We're looking at running an incredible one of the people's candidate for governor. And at the same time, we're looking at trying to overturn the electronic voting monopoly, which disenfranchises voters, and because it does not give us the people that
seems like a lofty goal, folks, but you have to set these high goals. You have to be able to take on the big issues, and I know that none of us are afraid to do that. Let's bring in our guest tonight, Penny Langford-Freeman. Penny, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thanks for inviting me.
Potentially the next governor of this great state of Texas. Penny, you guys are right now in an exploratory committee, exploratory phase of the campaign, and the feedback coming in is fantastic. The support for you is already there. Tell us kind of a little bit about the process and where things are right now.
Well, first, I had to be convinced because I've never been elected to anything, like Carol said, and I told him, I've never been a candidate. I've always been a consultant or a strategist or a director, and I've worked on a lot of campaigns. And they said, well, good. That's what they wanted, is for me to not be an establishment politician.
You haven't sold your soul yet. You haven't gone down the slippery slope. Sure.
Right. And so, I said, well, if I run, I don't lose. Okay. I don't run to lose. I don't run to get out a message. I know how to win campaigns. I believe that to have a broader message, you have to be a credible messenger. And so, we're going to do this right. And the first phase was, of course, convincing myself that I would be a decent candidate, and then talking to my family. And of course, my family is kind of freaked out because it means a lot of travel and a lot of time away from home. And I still have one girl who was in high school. So they were very supportive. And then I had to speak to my broader family, which was my husband's family and my extended family, which I'm one of 8. I'm the youngest of 8, and I've got like 40 nieces and nephews. Right there is a pretty broad campaign right there. So, I've been talking to them, and, they're getting on board and talking about things that we can do and things that I shouldn't do, like, forget about my family, and of course you have to schedule and prioritize and all of those things. And I actually used to do Dr. Paul's schedule, so, that's something that I can use as well for experience. So, this is where we are now. We're getting ready to take some pretty broad steps, official steps, and that means, filing exploratory papers and things like that so that we can start taking in funds. And it's going to cost a gazillion dollars, I have to tell you.
Well, that's one of the reasons we're bringing you on now. We need all the advanced media that we can get. I've had you on my radio show. We've been trying to introduce you around. I know you were at the PAC meeting that Paul Davis is going to talk about here in a bit.
Had a great time.
This is all part of the process, though. I mean, one of the things when we had Ron Paul running is he had an incredible, and I guess a lot of the mainstream media didn't understand this, he had an incredible base, a national base. Not just to mention a base here in Texas, but a national base before he decided that he was going to go ahead and pull the trigger and run a national campaign like that. And that's why the infrastructure was so well set up. That's why it took off so fast and gained such great momentum. So that's why we're having you on Frontline Texas tonight. I want to introduce you for those who don't know who Penny Langford-Freeman is. This is a good chance to get to know her. We are going to be taking calls here a little bit in the show, so you're more than welcome to put her to the test. I have. We went and did an event in South Dakota, Sturgis, South Dakota now. It was about a month ago. Amazing speakers up there and musicians, and the Lakota Indians as well were up there, and very good host, I thought. And we had a chance. We lived in a rooming house, folks. This is how they set it up. And Carol Jones and Penny Freeman, myself, and the gals from Vote Rescue, and Pat Shannon, the great investigative reporter, musician, works for American Free Press. It was just a whole bunch of us. We called it the Animal House, but it was a good chance for me to get to know Penny. I mean, you can always go put on a front when you're coming out to meet people and spend a few minutes with them and shake hands and kiss babies, or shake babies and kiss hands. You can get to, put on that front. You can, put on that veil, that illusion. But when you're living in a house with somebody, folks, for several days,
sharing
24
a bathroom
hours a day,
and a kitchen,
you get to know them pretty good. So I'm hoping that you become governor, because I've got some pretty good stories from our time up there, and all of them very
entertaining,
pure, and all of that. But at the end of the day, I want to get to know the candidate. And we were just talking about this a little bit before we went on air, Penny, about how people, you're going to be running as an independent. At least that's how it looks right now.
Right.
And people, get into this party mentality. Well, I've got to back whoever the Democrats put up. I've got to back whoever. I just checked the D box or the R box, and I'm a Republican or a Demopublican through and through, or I'm a Green Party person or a Libertarian person or a Constitution Party person, etc. And that's how I think we got into all this trouble, Penny, is
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, we can't just vote for a party. We've got to vote and support people. And when we find people that we like, and find people that we trust, and find people that aren't owned lock, stock, and bagel by the elite, then we've got to get behind them. And if we can do that, I really believe we can change things. It's extremely important for me as a citizen of Texas here. I live in Texas. My family lives in Texas. My business is in Texas. All of the viewers, I'm sure, except for some that might watch this later on the internet, are in the same position. We're sick and tired of Rick Perry's. We're sick and tired of these guys. Of course, Rick Perry brought up by Karl Rove. Is it any wonder we've been in this position? We're tired of the toll roads. We're tired of the cameras. We're tired of the police taking our blood and pulling us over on fishing expeditions. We're tired of the eminent domain and the property tax and the tax for this and the tax for that and the thises and the that's. So the only way we can change this is to find somebody that we know that is going to go to bat for us and go to bat to win. So Penny, your campaign, if you're in the exploratory committee, all signs are pointing that potentially after the election, this national election, you're going to jump in here with both feet, and that's what we're all hoping, and I think all the signs are pointing to that. But when we get to that point, we're going to need support. So if you could talk to the viewers here briefly and just let them know, what you plan to do, what's going to be on your docket, what are going to be the big issues you run on.
Okay. Well, first, I think that just who I am is very important here, with this election. It seems like with most of elected officials that we have right now, there's a huge disconnect. It's like they're not even human anymore. And one of the big things that I plan on doing and talking about through this whole election is that we need to have a script and some communication with the people of Texas. Used to, in the good old days, I don't know if you remember Jimmy Carter's fireside chats, but our elected officials talked to us. They told us what was coming up. They told us what was happening from their viewpoint, and people could hear on the radio and talk to their elected officials. We don't see that anymore. And that's where, we have an electorate that is highly uneducated about what's going on. And so just imagine having a governor that will tell you all of the legislation that's coming up, talk to you about some of the problems with the budget,
demand that our legislators read the legislation,
understand what's coming up, have understood, constitutionally what they can do with this piece of legislation, because that's the big problem here. They don't know, many of our legislators do not even know the rule of law or what they are legally allowed to do. And so when they have a piece of legislation and they don't know they don't even know their legal capacity or jurisdiction, they need to be reminded by somebody who does know. And I do know that because I've been learning it for the last 10 years. A lot of the things that are happening right now and a lot of the problems that we're having right now is that government has gotten so big, they haven't been under constitutional restraints, and they are abusing their power and they are abusing the people. And we have a moral responsibility to make our elected officials accountable to the people. And that's why I always tell people, forget reform. McCain is all about reform. Forget change. Obama's all about change. I'm saying in this election, we, the people, have to take it back. Not reform it, not change it, but take it back, because they work for you. You are paid with their tax dollars, and they have to be reminded that they are under restraints, because everything...
Penny, I'm all about decentralize and repeal. This is what
Absolutely.
Ron Paul was talking about. When I get in, I'm not going to do anything, really. I'm the president. The president's job, the executive's job, is somewhat limited to what I can actually do. Obviously, he would use the bully pulpit and be able to pull a few strings, but that's the problem, is that they do so much.
They do so much.
We pull back everything they've done, like the toll roads, again, eminent domain. There's so many things we could just rattle off the top of our heads that need to be repealed and decentralize some of the big fascist system that's been put together here in Texas. And where Texas goes, folks, you live in a great state, the rest of the country follows right along, and we have to set that example.
That's right. And the veto power is...
Who's this guy over here? Now I see he's on camera, and you're on
Paul.
camera. It is Paul Davis. He has just joined us here from Tag, Texas. Paul, we'll give you an introduction since they're putting you on camera here. And I love your shirt, by the way.
Right on, yes sir.
There we go. We're both sporting that. Now, we didn't plan this. I know it looks almost, I'm not going to say gay, but it almost looks a little too fashionable. Bookends here with the Brave New Books. I know they're going to love it. Brave New Bookstore is great. Paul, you were, you can correct me if I'm wrong, one of the founders of the Ron Paul meetup group here in Austin, Texas, which was one of the biggest meetup groups in the country.
Right, yeah, exactly. And you know how it all works out. From a gentleman in Houston who was running the meetup group there, he suggested I started one here, and we ended up having the biggest one. Between us and New York, it was always neck and neck. So yeah.
New York,
He deserves
get
a
a
lot
rope.
of yeah, and actually, they got the highest percentage of votes for Ron Paul in the primary than anywhere else in the state, and probably many other many other states because you
Huge
work so hard.
support, and they loved it. Show them your ink right here, your We the People ink. Is that going to get on the camera?
My big arm there. I know it's, you know.
And then he
good to
has
be fun.
freedom right here
There you
across
go.
his neck.
You can get that in frame.
Where you at?
Look at this guy is
You'll call it
committed,
now,
folks.
attack.
Right here, We
Attack.
the People ink, permanent ink.
Oh man.
That's part of the commitment, but I mean, anyone can get ink, obviously, Paul.
Right.
Paul Davis, I want to have you. I just wanted to introduce you since they're putting you on camera. It would be unprofessional of me not to do that. We're going to talk about TAG Texas and the meeting that you guys put together. In fact, I think we have a clip from it as well, which we'll be able to show here very briefly. Cool. Penny, let me go back to you, Penny, because
Okay.
what we're trying to do here is make people realize a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, I'm for reform, I'm for change, and I'm for freedom, and I'm for the Constitution. It's freedom and the Constitution. You know, we have heard this over and over again. I mean, are we at the point now where people look at somebody saying, oh, I want to run for governor, I'm a politician. I know you're an unwilling politician, but I mean, this is a job somebody's got to do, and since I can't run, you know, but what do we say to the people out there that are so cynical at this point, just so jaded? It's like, oh man, I've heard that before. I mean, you're asking me to vote or call my congressman or something. That's never solved anything before. Number one, what do we say to those people about that and to crush that apathy and that cynicism? And number two, maybe share some experiences that you've had with Ron Paul that might have rubbed off on you that you could take here to Texas.
Okay, well, number one, I'm a real person, okay? I've never been a politician. I have had to work just about every day of my life since I was 16 because, you know, I did not come from a family and I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Right now, just, you know, give you a little bit about who I am right now. I am a business owner. I don't have to do this. I don't need this job, okay? And the reason that I don't need this job is because I have worked and I have saved and I have invested and I've been responsible with my money and been responsible with my life. So that being where it is and I don't need the job, you know, first thing that I would tell the people of Texas is, you know, one of the number one things that I would like to do is cut my own salary because I think that it's heinous that we have a governor that makes a six-figure salary, rides around in this dark black, big, huge vehicle with caravan.
We're now paying for his new mansion, $10,000 a month for that.
And then this mansion that, you know, that the governor lives in, I think that is heinous when most of the people here are in the state of Texas have a median salary of about $40,000 or $45,000 and are having a hard time putting food on their table and putting gas in their car. I think that is not a representative style of government. If you want somebody who can identify with the problems of the people, you get somebody who actually has had the problems of the people. I had to raise 4 kids by myself. That was very hard. Sometimes I had 1 can of green beans in my cabinet. I know what it means to do without, and I know what it means to budget and cut spending on things that you do not need. And there is a lot of stuff in this budget, $82.5 billion, that we do not need. Matter of fact, that's so loosely spent right now that we lost $1.1 billion under the tech dot spending. So, I mean, if you can just lose $1.1 billion and no one was fired, held accountable, no one was indicted for stealing it, you know, what does that tell you about the accountability of your government?
That's right, and not to mention the fact that I don't see Texans profiting as a state from the resources that come out of Texas. The same thing is happening. I mean, if you look at Louisiana, one of the poorest states out there in the country, and especially now with all the recent trouble with the natural disaster and whatnot, they don't get all that oil money. And I'm not saying, you know, we should create a communist state out of Louisiana, but what I am saying is, wouldn't gas be cheaper in Louisiana if they're pumping it all out to the rest of the world and to the rest of the country? Couldn't they get a break? Couldn't they get a tax break? I mean, we're talking about the same thing going on in Montana where all this sweet crude has been found there. And somebody's talking about, well, we've got all this and John McCain wants to send Exxon in there to drill for it or Halliburton or Bechtel to do that. No, I mean, these are things, these resources belong to the people of Texas and can be, at least in some way, shape, or form, put towards the payment of all of these services and resources and taxes and energy. But these are just things that are so common sense, Penny, that
Well, they go right.
you know
yeah.
that they're not doing them, they're crooks.
Well, and all the CEOs of those oil and energy companies, they're high rollers, and they own the lobby, the corporate lobby on the state legislature and in Washington, D.C., they basically own those two entities, okay? The corporate lobby owns our legislature right now. And so we have to have people who will go up there and say, no, I'm not even going to listen to you because you have your own agenda and your own interest. And that is get rich quick off of taxpayers' money. Another thing is that I just think that is heinous is that, these lobbies with the TEA or the Texas Education Agency and TxDOT, you see all these billboards everywhere, all over town. That is our money that they are lobbying the legislature with. So you have a corporate lobby, and then you have a taxpayer-funded lobby.
Right. We're doing it federally, we're doing it by city, by town, we're doing it by state. I just saw today, again, $100 million from the taxpayers to pay for these parties, these conventions.
Right.
With 100 million voters, I guess that's $1 per voter, but that stuff starts adding up. And here with the immigration problem and the social services going to them, the massive welfare state that is being perpetuated and kind of conned into everybody's basic lifestyle here. I mean, now whatever they're going to plan to do with healthcare, with Homeland Security. We talked last week on the program about the Real ID Act and biometric IDs and how that's a boondoggle that's going to cost us money. I mean, all we have to do is just not do that stuff, and look how much money we save. But then again, if we can tap into some of the resources of this state, if we can use community resources as charity to help people rather than to get them stuck on the government welfare plan. Penny, I know this is all stuff that you know, Ron Paul knows. Do you think we'll get it through to Texans? Are they going to vote for another cheerleader or a second, third term for cheerleader Perry, or are they going to just forget it and throw it all to the wind and put in Kinky Friedman? Are they going to have any sense this time around in 2010? We've got 2 years.
I'll tell you, I hope so, because it's getting to where the abuse, the government abuse is so bad, and it's affecting families and citizens so badly that I don't see this republic lasting very much longer because of our fiat money, the Federal Reserve, controlling the value of the dollar. I just don't see it going on very much longer. We're looking at, graduating from a recession to a full-blown depression, and they're going to see, they think they see abuse now with people taking their children and their property and, everything that their tax dollars, all of this stuff. It's a broad abuse. But if they don't start realizing, and if we don't start educating them through this campaign, I don't see this country being, for life, liberty, and the American way for very much longer.
You saw my little man, Fallon, when we came on the air. A lot of people have met my little guy here, and this is what it's about.
He's cute.
We've got
That's
to
right.
preserve a future for our children. It sounds trite. It sounds, like you've just worn that out a million times. It's always for the children. But we mean it, folks. It is for the children.
And let me tell you something. There is a bill before Congress right now, and it's Chuck Hagel's bill, that every man, woman, and child from 17 to 44 will be drafted and serve in military service.
Oh, they've got to do that.
Okay? Because we're fighting these wars all over the world, and we come up with new ones every day.
Every military analyst
so,
has said if we stay going the way we're going, there's going to have to be a draft. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. Penny, I want you to be in this conversation. One of the things I want you to know, when we elect you governor of Texas, when you win, and when you officially declare, we'll even talk a little harder about your winning. You're going to win. This guy over here, Paul Davis, is going to make sure you're accountable Texans for Accountable Government.
Absolutely.
There are no friends in politics. We love Penny, but we're going to put the screws to every single politician, to every public servant out there. Make sure that government is accountable for once. Paul, please tell people about your political action group and the meeting that you guys had yesterday.
Well, yeah, man, we're just trying to take all this momentum from the Ron Paul Revolution, and again, like you mentioned, here in Austin, it's just a hub for activism, people that are aware of what's going on. So, we realized, I had an elder tell me years ago, he's like, if you want to really make some change, to have an effect, you have to establish some type of political caucus. And so we're really excited about this. With the PAC, it allows us to raise some funds, to be able to do things before that we were having to pay for our own pockets out of here and there, and that's rough for people that just have everyday jobs like us, And so it's going to really open the door for us to take in some money, to get people involved in the organization. Not only do we want to hold the government accountable here in the state of Texas, but also the members of the group, the members of TAG, people that have leadership roles or just organizing roles, so that we can really have everything in order so that we can start to affect some real change.
This is infrastructure that is organized. You have just elected a steering committee yesterday. I know at the first convention, you are on that steering committee. The agenda will be things that are good for Austin, good for Texas, and there's a pile of things. Now, people can become a member of this, and they can have an influence over what the steering committee goes after, what the agenda is, what the target is going to be, Paul. And tagtexas.org is the website. People can sign up. I think it's $10 a year to be a member, and obviously they can contribute more. They can contribute their time and effort. I've honestly believed that if you have 1,000 people in any state, if you have 1,000 people in any state, the producer just said, don't talk about money. I don't think we did, but it is a fact that if you want to be a member, it costs $10. None of you do it, okay? But whatever. In either case, I really think it's a fact that if you have 1,000 people in a city or even in a state, and you can move them around and have them all coordinate, whether they're all faxing at the same hour or all calling at the same hour or all going to one place to redress their grievances, even 1,000 people, 500 people would make such a difference in a state with millions of people that we would begin to see things change just almost immediately.
Right, exactly. And a perfect example of that was with this chief of police here that just recently announced that they want to start taking our blood on the roadside if people refuse, a breathalyzer or whatever. That really was a galvanizing event that took place that kind of showed the power that we can have here as people in
Wait a minute, Paul. He said that was for your safety.
Oh, it's always for your safety,
In case you might crash.
For the children.
Right. We talk about a victimless crime. I think we might have talked about this last week a little bit too. I mean, in case you might crash, of course they've now set the bar so low that your grandma can have 2 beers and she's drunk driving, she's an experienced drinker with 40 years experience of, I shouldn't say that about your grandma, Paul, but that's the fact. I mean, this is you haven't even committed a crime yet and you're already in trouble. And of course, once you get caught for something like a DUI, it's on your record, your insurance goes up, you're on probation. I mean, they are hounding you now almost for the rest of your life. It can open the gates to getting into even more trouble. But if that's not enough for your safety, because they love you, they're going to take your blood against your will if you refuse to take the appropriate tests for alcohol, which are unconstitutional according to your Fifth Amendment. You have a right not to incriminate yourself. You have a right to call a lawyer. Now this is the point where I start pounding on the table, Paul, because this is just some of what we're fighting. But folks, I want to tell you, we're going to take your calls here in just a second. I want to tell you, we've won stuff. There is a lot of things here we've won, including getting rid of the new Freedom Initiative, the forced drugging and testing of our children. Speaking about drunk driving, we chased out the checkpoints with Texans against checkpoints, and though they do come back illegally, they're not constitutionally allowed to set up checkpoints here in Austin, Texas, or in Texas at all. And there's a long list of things that we have accomplished here. So with Tag Texas, Texans for Accountable Government, by putting together a campaign for an honest governor that can then be an example to all of the politicians and all of the people. Think about all of the people that that just have absolutely no moral compass because Rick Perry is their example. You know, when I think about that, Penny, I think about how much good we can do with just a little support and a few moves. It really actually gives me hope and makes me quite happy. The number, if you can put it on the screen. Guys, let's take a couple of calls,
Okay.
and you can ask specific questions of myself or my guest, and we'll continue to let you know about organizations that are out there trying to get accountability, truth, and justice. Before we get done, we're going to give you a Vote Rescue all alert 25 gun instant
Tomorrow,
massive
yeah.
alert that
Tomorrow.
you need to think about for tomorrow morning. So get your pens ready for that. Let's take some of these calls if we can. I believe I just pushed the button. Number 1, you're on the air. Are you on the air?
Hello.
Thank you for joining us, sir.
Y'all talking about funds that are being misused and everything else. I don't see none of you with the Longhorn T-shirt or nothing on. Through the Texas Education Agency, our college educations that they're spending out here, the waste of money that has cost us, the taxpayers, the citizens of Austin, to explore, build a new stadium almost over all that money. Also, how many kids that's been on that UT football team has been busted for drugs? Each year that student stays in there on scholarship is $100,000 out of our taxpayers' money. Cut it back.
It all adds up, doesn't it?
Yes, but what I'm going to get driving at is let's go to Highland Park schools up there. Those people are taxed to death, but almost 99% of those kids graduate out of school. The rest of Dallas has only got 47% graduating out of high school.
Yeah.
Where's all that money going?
I'll tell you. I can
Thanks for the call, sir.
Yes, I can fully identify with this because my kids have been homeschooled. They've been privately educated, or in a private parochial school, and then I have also had kids in public school. Right now, there has been a poll taken by Empower Texas that over 50% of the people of Texas are either very unhappy or moderately unhappy with the way our schools are being run and the type of education that our children are getting. However, over 50% of the budget is going for education, and they keep screaming for more and more money. What kind of aesthetics does it actually take for a child to be educated? I had 2 of my kids that were educated and taught how to read under a tree, okay? So this money is not getting into the classroom. Most of it is
They're
going...
probably a lot more educated than the ones where you
Yes.
spent $50,000 a year
And
on.
I knew that they could read because I was paying attention. But this is another problem. So many of the people and so many of the parents are kind of asleep at the wheel. You know, they're not in that classroom making sure that their kids are getting taught. And a lot of that budget, I have to say, is going to administration costs rather than actually educating the kids.
And
or
those people
stadiums,
justifying their jobs
right?
in order to create the bureaucracy so they can have the job, so that they can get the raise, so that they can get the insurance and the health care and everything that goes with it. Absolutely.
And on the news just this afternoon, I saw, you know, this a school that they were lamenting that they had to have temporary housing for their children. You know, there are a lot of people who live in temporary housing, and these kids go there a few hours a day, get taught what they need to be taught, and it's not like you have to have this museum attitude for schools. You know, we need to have there needs to have a limit, and these school districts have to have some accountability on how this money is being spent, because we send our money through income taxes to Washington, D.C. We have a Department of Education up there and No Child Left Behind that does absolutely nothing but burn up 75 cents of your money for every dollar. They send us back just a little bit, and we use that little bit for the TEA, and that needs to stop. That needs to stop. It's socialism, and socialism
right.
does not work.
And again, how Texas goes, the rest of the country goes, especially in education, Penny, because the fact is that the Carnegie Foundation, they formulate the books on Texas curriculum, and then and California, and they sell so many there that they just print them massively out to all the other states. So again, if we can change this, we can set an example in Texas, then the benefit will go to the other states and the other cities as well.
Absolutely. And Jack, I totally believe that if there was more competition in the education industry, right now we have a government monopoly. And if you think that government doesn't work, you know that a government monopoly will not work. So, we have to have, whether it's vouchers, whether it is more legalization of competitive schooling.
I have an
There's
idea.
A lot of different ways that we can do
I have an
this.
idea. If we have a sound money system and we're not giving away half of our income for taxes and for other welfare programs, and we get to keep all our money, maybe we can afford to pay for private schools for our kids. If that's what you want to do, or the mother can stay home, or the father can stay home, or both can educate the child in the home through a homeschooling program.
Jack, right now we're paying about $8,900 per child, per student in Texas, okay? It costs about $4,000 for a privately educated, private education per student. And right now, even the East Coast schools are asking for and giving preference to homeschooled children because they're better behaved and they have a better education. So it is not that unusual for them to ace
We'll pay
an
for
SAT
them to go
test.
through the indoctrination centers. We'll pay for them and go into the prison industrial complex. Paul, I know when I said sound money, no taxes, I kind of
I heard his teeth
I
gritting.
heard him, man.
His
His
teeth
eyes
were
were
gritting.
bouncing and spinning around in there. That's a pretty good idea. Seems to fix everything, folks. Go ahead and call in at the number on the screen. It looks like we have about another 15 minutes left. Try to ask a quick question. My guest, Penny Langford-Freeman, pennyforgovernor.com. Is that correct? I have it on the screen here. pennyforgovernor.com. And then with us also, Paul Davis, one of the founders of the great meetup, Ron Paul Meetup Group here in Austin, Texas, now with Texans for Accountable Government. That is tagtexas.org. Caller 2, you're on the air. Thanks for joining us on Frontline Texas.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir. Thank you. for joining us.
Okay. If I was the governor, I would open a new investigation into 9/11, and I would stand behind it. And I want to know if the madam there would open an investigation using Texas's best investigators to investigate 9/11.
That's not a Texas crime, though, is
and
it?
what I'm tired of is all these politicians that want to get in office. They get in office, and then, they shun away from it. This country has been hijacked, and unless we realize that and bring those people at the highest level to justice, all of this that you guys are talking about is meaningless.
That's
I
not
mean, it
true.
means
That's
nothing.
absolutely
We're
not
losing,
true.
and
And
we're
I have
still playing
investigated
their game.
9/11 for 7 years since it happened. That's not true, because if you're focused on some of these big issues, which are very important, and if you listen to my show, you'll know that, you're going to get steamrolled into your local community. I agree with you on the one hand. On the other, I don't think it's the governor of Texas's job to investigate what happened in New York and in Washington, D.C. I think, Penny, safe to say, we can't believe the government on everything they tell us.
Well, I believe in questioning everything that government does. And I would wholeheartedly back a non-government or another investigation, because FEMA did that investigation, and you know how efficient FEMA is. But, I have never, I'm not an engineer, and I don't claim to know everything about engineering, but some of the things, whenever there's a problem in government, whenever there's a question in government, you follow the money. And there's some things that are questionable
Cui
about
bono,
9/11.
who benefits?
That's
Obviously, these questions need to be asked. If any police officer looked into the issue of 9/11, there would be a lot of people that would have been under the hot lights. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But Penny, I really believe, these are important issues. Our government lied to us,
Right.
potentially on something that had so many bowling ball effects. I mean, we had to give up our liberties. We have expensive wars. It's just one thing after the other, all of it based and predicated on 9/11. So that is a big issue, but and we can't take our eye off the ball off the things we can actually fix in our neighborhoods and in our states and cities, and that is also extremely important. All right, caller 1, you're on. Thank you for joining us on Frontline Texas.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello?
You're on the
Go
air.
ahead, we can hear you.
Okay. I was just calling to ask about your opinion for the mandatory fingerprinting for teachers. It seems that they already, the school systems can get your driver's license and check your background that way. And it seems as if the fingerprinting is almost being done as a way to hand out contracts to these fingerprinting companies, and they've already lost a lot of teachers' fingerprints. I believe Wichita Falls, the whole city, they lost the fingerprints, and they've lost some of the teachers' fingerprints that they've taken in the area and city of Austin. And what's your opinion about that?
Well, once again, government surveillance is something that has to really, really be looked at, especially on, even going as far down as the local level, because you have to watch out. Texas has a Bill of Rights, and in that Bill of Rights, it directly mirrors and is germane to the U.S. Bill of Rights, and it is very, very sticky when you start violating people's Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, and all encompassing their privacy. So, once again, government trying to track people down. I have a teacher. I had a teacher in school. She taught for 45 years. They never fingerprinted her. Does that make them a better teacher to have, their blood type and their fingerprints and a piece of hair, do DNA background? How about a test to see what these teachers know before they come into
Caller,
the
what do you
classroom?
think? What do you think about that? You asked the question.
I don't agree with it. I think it's an invasion of privacy. I think but what bothers me the most is no one standing up against it.
Well, what about, caller, what do you feel about these random drug tests for all the kids that wanted to participate in extracurricular activities?
I don't agree with. I just don't agree with a lot of what's going on. I think it seems as if there are more and more of these programs or these issues that are being brought up to generate money, where it's almost like there's a money grab. Where can we take money from
It's also
here or
conditioning. We're conditioning our children
Right.
and their teachers to be prisoners and to act like prisoners and to act like they're guilty before actually, again, committing a crime. This is one of those issues. Caller, thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
Probably a pretty good issue for you, Paul. I mean, this is something that your organization can tackle. But, what I want to say to all of the viewers out there tonight watching Frontline Texas is, if you get upset about something, if you find something like this that is absolutely just not going to sit with you, rather than saying, well, nobody's doing anything about it, why don't you do something about it? Why don't you be the leader?
Absolutely.
Because I've seen what one person can do. I mean, we have these people on my radio program all the time. And if you just say, okay, I'm going to take a stand. We had Sheila Dean on last week, and she's, fronting Texans against the Real ID, the 511campaign.org, and she just works constantly to do this. She's taken it upon herself. So maybe that's your line in the sand. That's your calling. You put up the flag, and everybody starts rallying, and we just get rid of it. Paul, the surveillance state as a whole and surveilling our students, something for Texans for accountable government?
Yes, totally. And I mean, the main thing too is going after what I call the criminals. I mean, the criminals who are pushing these policies. There's a lot of things that are taking place that the people don't even have any say-so over. There's a lot of underhanded things that are taking place, speaking of Perry and his boys up there. So we want to go after the criminals and after the policies that go against the liberty that we're supposed to have, and try to cut this off at the head. Because a lot of times when you do address it, things happen, and people need to realize that if we don't stand up to it, we know what we're going to get.
Yeah.
We know that. And when you do stand up to it, it's like Jack was saying earlier, we have some wins under our belt, and we're just getting started. So people really need to realize.
So we take about 300-400 people down to the Department of Education, and we let them have it. We don't go until we get to talk to somebody. We get all the news stations to come down there, put out mass press releases, and maybe see if we can put the fear of liberty in them. Let them know we're trying to legalize freedom.
Actually, and Jack, it doesn't take a majority. The majority of people don't even vote anymore. It takes, a few activists that are willing to fight on an issue, people who will not lay down and just, take whatever the state will give them. And we have a moral issue to do these things and to fight these abuses. Because, just like any child abuse, this is child abuse. Government is practicing child and citizen abuse, and we have a moral right to fight it.
Certainly one of my lines in the sand, but I've been sharpening my pitchfork here for quite some time on some of these issues. And, I'll just say it. I mean, Penny, you're a professional person. We're going to set you up in whatever we can do to help push your campaign forward, because I think you'd make a great governor. Paul, your organization really shows a lot of potential. I, however, am just a revolutionist, a political anarchist for the most part, and I'm not going to make any friends. I don't care about making friends. It doesn't matter if you're watching this TV show, you listen to my radio show. We're going to go out and really, take that boot off the neck of the citizens of Texas and around the country. And if I have to take my pitchfork out and my torch and go down to somebody's house, I'm going to do that. But I speak for myself and not for my guests today. Caller 2, you're on the air. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, what's up, guys? John Bush here. How y'all doing tonight?
Hey, John Bush,
John.
also from Texans from Accountable Government. What's up, man?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on that guy's call earlier on the 9/11 issue. And my comment is, while that is absolutely important, I think more people need to realize that we need to live in the now and be aware that we do have the ability to take over from the local level, and then from there work our way up, like what Senator Kirk Watson was just the mayor not too long ago. That's feasible for freedom-minded people. It just takes a little momentum, which I believe that we already got the ball rolling.
I call Watson Zelikow. If some of you have researched 9/11, you'll know what I mean by that, and what his little job there with TxDOT. I mean, it happened, John. It happened 7 years ago. I still want accountability, but why not get accountability for the 1993 World Trade Center bombing that was an admitted FBI sting operation? Why not get accountability for Waco? We just had Randy Weaver on our radio program. It was the anniversary for Ruby Ridge. We still haven't gotten full accountability and full disclosure on that. Again, Oklahoma City as another story full of holes, which of course gave us the Clinton crime bill, which was maybe even worse than the Patriot Act, but certainly a precursor to it. So there's a lot of things like that we can get to, but man, if we can get in, and what I want people to do, and people that listen to my national show, is to look at a group like Texans for Accountable Government. Again, their website is tagtexas.org. Please go there, look at it, sign up, get behind something like this, and get something professional that can move, and we'll start taking the chips back and put them on our side of the table. And once you get a couple of those victories, Paul, it's so sweet, it's so fun, that it becomes addicting, and so many Texans are going to want to join this, and they're going to be hungry for more victories. As soon as we start backing them into a corner a little bit, then the fear comes on the part of the government. Then we have freedom instead of tyranny. I mean, it doesn't take a lot for them to start running and hiding and selling each other out, which is kind of what we're seeing now on a national level.
Right, exactly, and you're so right. You talked about our ability to get some wins under. There is a lot of things where people are watching. There's a lot of people waiting to jump on a bandwagon. They're just waiting for the right time, or when they feel like something is really an effective organization. So this is that. We had a huge meeting last night. I think we had maybe, how many people would you say? About 100.
When I left there was at least 150 people or more, yeah.
200 people, and so it's serious, and people that came up and talked to me feel really good about it because they see the things that can.
That's just the first meeting. John, I look forward to you guys doing great things, and I hope everybody watching this TV show, they live in Texas. This concerns you. You may not have to do very much to even help them get started in a big way. Go to tagtexas.org and check that out. Go to Penny Freeman for government. Give me the Give me the website again. I'm looking at all these papers.
Pennyforgovernor.com.
That's so easy to remember, too. Pennyforgovernor.com, but then I have a lot on my mind. Let's see. Do we have time to take one more call? We'll give it a shot here. Line 3, last caller, Frontline Texas. Thanks for joining us.
I got 2 questions for the future governor.
Yeah.
And that is, since it was taken out of our jurisdiction, would you reopen the Kennedy assassination? And also, I was one of those guys starting in the late 70s, rode around with a secede bumper sticker. Would you be open to secession from the Union to get rid of the
Good
Fed?
question.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you about the Kennedy assassination. You know, that's sort of like a lot of things. They kind of bury it, and then after 50 years, they find out that something really, really did happen. They called them conspiracy theorists way back when it happened, right? When everybody knew that Lee Harvey Oswald could not have done that. And I see a lot of these things happening now that people are saying, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, our track record shows us that we cannot trust the government. We have to do citizens research
Wasn't the
on
whole
it.
lone gunman
And-
theory a conspiracy theory?
Yeah,
It was
everything.
kind of hard to swallow for me personally.
Everybody's a kook. You know, everybody's a kook, and nobody can have a difference of opinion. You are trained not to question the government because you are a kook if you do.
So we can reopen a Kennedy investigation potentially?
Reopen any investigation, especially if it's the citizens. You know, I think that one of the first things that we need to do first is investigate TxDOT. You know. And
Right.
investigate all of these agencies that are spending your money right and left. Make them accountable for that first. Then we'll go back and research those other things. But what was his next question?
Secession.
Secession. That is a politically volatile topic. What I would rather call it prohibiting federal jurisdiction, because all of these federal mandates coming down are really, you know, they really need to be resisted, they need to be vetoed, they need to, all of these things like the new business tax needs to be repealed. But last time we tried to secede, we got a war, and that's something that we really don't need right now. Okay?
Potentially anything's on the table, and Penny will be happy to talk about. Thank you
Right.
guys for joining us on the
Right.
program
Really
today.
enjoyed it,
Quickly, tomorrow morning at 8:30 in the morning at the Travis County Commissioner's Court, located at 314 West 11th Street at the corner of 11th and Guadalupe. We need everybody out in the morning. They are now allocating hundreds of thousands of dollars more for electronic voting machines. Let's go stand up tomorrow. Go to voterescue.org right now. Find out where to go sign up. You can speak if you live in Travis County. Folks, that does it for our program today. I thank you all for watching. Richard Reeves should be back, probably not next week because it's Labor Day, but most likely the week after. Folks, please take care of yourself, your family. Take care of Texas.
I will be there
And take
tomorrow.
care of me.
Yeah. I'll be there tomorrow.
JackBlood.com, Genesis Communications Radio Network, 90.1, 3 o'clock every day. I'll see you there. Thanks for joining us on Frontline Texas.
Thanks, Jack.
Yes. Get off your butt. Do something.
Excellent.